welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Amid growing concerns over covert intelligence operations on Polish soil, authorities have detained 2 Ukrainian nationals on suspicion of working for foreign services targeting Poland's security and support for Ukraine. To unpack the dimensions of this recruitment and espionage wave, especially the targeting of Ukrainians and Belarusians in Poland, we're joined on TVP World by Paulina Piasecka, director of the Terrorism Research Center at Civitas University, whose work covers regional intelligence threats, hybrid warfare, and state security challenges. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello.
So before we dive deep into the specifics and how to counter some of these espionage activities, let's take a look at the statement made by a Polish security service coordinator and take a look at what we're dealing with here.
These individuals were spying, gathering intelligence. Among other things, they were installing cameras or photo traps along key transport routes. The suspects were interested in military facilities, but also critical and transport infrastructure in Poland. They recorded, among other things, military transports running through Poland with assistance and aid for Ukraine.
So in the grand scheme of things, how do you assess the significance of these 2 Ukrainian nationals' detention by Poland for these alleged intelligence activities?
Well, I don't think that any individual is capable of causing the threat or the danger that could actually destroy the Polish capability of helping Ukraine and defending itself. However, what is significant about that is that it's only a part of arrests that have been talked about quite a lot for quite some time, including the statements of the Polish Prime Minister. And so what we're looking here at is rather a symptom and an element of much wider threat that we are facing as a country and as a country that serves as the transportation hub of the military help to Ukraine.
Right. They call this a wider threat. Can you help us paint a picture of what are some of the patterns emerging when it comes to espionage activities within Poland, especially the recruitment of Ukrainians or Belarusian nationals?
Well, we're facing a very particular threat because it is a double threat. I mean, we're not talking here only about the fact that there are individuals who have been recruited, who are the sort of one-time usable agents, which actually are very hard to connect to their Russian handlers, which is a threat in itself, and a threat that can cause a significant harm to the Polish critical infrastructure and the Polish military potential. But also, it serves as a tool, and this is my opinion, of course. I don't sit within the heads of the Russian handlers and Russian recruiters, but I think that it's no accident that the nationality of those people we're talking about is Russian and, is Ukrainian and Belarusian. This serves perfectly on other fronts of this hybrid warfare, so building the resentment and building the distrust and building the hostilities between the Polish society and, for example, the Ukrainian refugees and migrants.
Right. You brought up a very good point about why Ukrainians and Belarusians specifically are particularly valuable for the Russian intelligence operation. But once we figure out why they're valuable, but what makes them vulnerable for these type of influences and what makes them an easy target in order to carry out some of these Russian espionage activities?
Well, I think there might be a few reasons. First and foremost, we would have to know more about the specifics of individual cases. But what I would look for is, for example, the families that might have been detained or are threatened by Russians. And so it might be the case of blackmail. It might be the case of somebody who is marginalized or ostracized or has been treated poorly, or at least feels that they have been treated poorly. And so there is a building resentment towards the Polish society or Polish government. There might be also a case of people who, and I'm not talking here about this last pair of 2 people who were actively trying to do a reconnaissance against the Polish military potential and or critical infrastructure. I'm talking generally here of the threat of the foreign intelligence activities in the territory of Poland. There might actually be some people who are being hired to do a short-term jobs who don't really realize the broader context of what's happening and the broader context to and the ends to which those individual criminal acts, for example, like arsons or I don't know, other activities that might threaten elements of critical infrastructure might be actually a part of this hybrid warfare.
All right, you brought up a very good point as well. A lot of these people who are carrying out these activities don't see the bigger picture and how that plays into the whole kind of espionage activity. But if you can help us clarify when it comes to the bigger picture, do you think that this is a substantial network that we're looking at here with well-coordinated efforts? And going forward, do you think that this network might grow, or do you think the Polish law enforcement and authorities will be able to stem it out somewhat?
Well, this is something that has been also stressed by the spokesperson for the Polish coordinator of intelligence services. He has said quite clearly during the press conference that what we should be looking at and we should be looking for are actually the coordinators, the people who do the recruitment and the people who actually hand out tasks. Because the problem that we're facing right now is this sort of recruitment of cannon fodder, the intelligence type of cannon fodder. Again, as we've said, the one-time usable only people, and it's not the people who do the task actually that should be worrying to us. It's the people who handle them, the people who have money to recruit them, and so catching and eliminating those who do coordinate is somewhat of the crucial element of this counterintelligence and counter-sabotage activity. Otherwise, if we don't do that, the tools that they're using for recruitment, like, for example, the Telegram channels, like, for example, the internet fora, that allow them to simply take from the market easily available bodies to do simple tasks that create this wider picture or wider puzzle of the connected attacks, might be something that is actually critically threatening.
Right. I'd also like to go back to this discussions that we had about how this is sort of a killing two birds with one stone move made by Russia to also foster some resentment when it comes to the Ukrainian and Belarusian population living within Poland. I think it's very important to speak about these things candidly in a way that you carried out, kind of discuss how these espionage activities are carried out. Do you think that this is going to sway public opinion? And from a media perspective or from our perspective, kind of speaking to the viewers, how do we differentiate these individual kind of incidents and connecting that to a broader kind of cultural resentment or perhaps the deterrence of it?
Well, probably what would be important is stressing that these are the individuals, and within any nation and within any social group, we might find people who, to say it simply, who are bad people, easily corrupted people, who are people who can sell their souls for the minimum amount of money. That's the problem. The problem with narratives that stress the nationality itself. What we should be looking at is the fact that these were Russian spies and Russian bought assets. But we are tempted in our, goal to describe the reality in a precise and fully detailed manner. We are giving the fuel to those narratives that, again, stress the nationalities. Now, I know we cannot omit that, but stressing and using the language in a way that shows the fact that this is only a tool, this person, this individual that is being used, but the attack, the thought behind the attack, the strategy behind the attack is actually the Kremlin-made, GRU-made, or FSB-made threat, and reminding people that this is somebody who is against us. This is our enemy that uses any tools and any forms of attacks that are available to them, and that focusing on the nationality of those who actually do the deed to an extent also serves the goals of their handlers.
All right, thank you so much for that. And last but not least, I'm also curious about whether this case will represent just more like a one-off incident, or will we be able to expect something like that happening more in the future? And when it comes to these hybrid warfare, how effective do you think Poland will be able to crack down on them in the future?
I put great hope not only in the rising level of the experience of our security and intelligence services. This is something that, this is the new form of warfare. And so the more we know and the more experienced our services are, the better off we are when it comes to countering those threats. It is also my deep belief that cooperation with our international partners, this last arrest is actually connected to the activity of Danilo H. So the men of this pair of men and women who have just been arrested, with connection not only to their activities in Poland, but also to their activities in Romania. And it was a cooperation between Polish and Romanian services. So international cooperation and the awareness of the fact that this hybrid warfare is just a little bit similar to terrorism in terms of its trans-border, transnational character, is something to be thought about and something to be trusted as a tool to the greater effectiveness in countering those threats.
Right, so it does seem like the Polish authorities are dealing with it as well, and hopefully things will be more optimistic going forward. In the meantime, thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it, and thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers. And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. For more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.